Hello again. I honestly don't know why the word nuclear strikes such terror into the hearts of many otherwise sane and sensible people. But there it is. It is one of those words like radiation that tends to drive out rational thought and make people prone to panic and consequently liable to make hasty, ill-informed and often bad decisions. We are all of us right now exposed to nuclear radiation. Some of it is from outer space, cosmic radiation, which is passing through our bodies right this minute as I speak. And of course, other radiation comes from the Earth itself. It's passing up. The bricks in our houses give off nuclear radiation. We are bathed in radiation. We cannot escape it. It's the background to our lives. Right this minute as you watch this, you are being exposed to nuclear radiation. I think it might be because the word nuclear is so often linked to weapons that it has that capacity to make us feel nervous. It causes us to think that nuclear radiation and nuclear reactors are inherently dangerous, and that nuclear reactors might have the potential to explode like nuclear bombs, which is of course quite ridiculous. Does anybody remember in the 1980s when there was a new method of scanning people, a bit like X-rays, it came into use? It was called nuclear magnetic resonance imaging. There was no radiation involved, but because of that word nuclear, people were refusing to have scans. They didn't like the sound of it. Nuclear? No, that must be dangerous. What the doctors then did was to drop the word nuclear and started calling it just magnetic resonance imaging, or MRI for short. And nobody has ever declined an MRI because it doesn't have that fatal word in it. The same thing happened at that same time with irradiated food, which entailed killing bacteria in food, vegetables and so on, fruit, with gamma rays. Because that had the word radiation, as in irradiated, people wouldn't buy irradiated food. There was a tremendous fuss about it, and so that way of preserving food was dropped, which was a shame. It is for this reason that the fact that there was a small fire at a nuclear power plant in Ukraine was a godsend for that country. It really was a gift from the gods. It enabled the Ukrainians to throw around the word nuclear and threaten us all with radiation poisoning, and at the same time provided a reason why we in the rest of Europe should get involved in the war in Ukraine. After all, the effects will be felt all over Europe if we don't do something about it. It will be another Chernobyl. Yes, Chernobyl. Remember the nuclear disaster at Chernobyl? The Lord alone knows how many people were killed by that dreadful accident. In fact, we know pretty accurately how many people were killed there in 1986. It was 31. Another 30 or so died over the next 20 years. And according to the United Nations, the final death toll was about 100. That is fewer people than died at Aberfan. This is regrettable, obviously, but it's hardly a major disaster. It's a local mishap. Various attempts have been made to calculate how many excess deaths might have been caused in the long run by radiation from Chernobyl, but this is impossible because people will get more radiation from having a couple of X-rays or flying in an aeroplane a few times to go on holiday than they're likely to have got from Chernobyl. So all the exaggerated tens of thousands of deaths that you see there, you can't really believe them. Nevertheless, the fact that a nuclear reactor was near a fire has been used as a fantastic piece of propaganda by Ukraine. I don't blame them at all for this, but we must always bear in mind that during wars, everybody lies their heads off, even the people for whom we feel sympathy. In other words, both sides lie. There's nothing special about the Ukrainians, and I have no doubt at all that they are telling just as many lies about what is going on as the Russians. So it is that Russia says that fewer than 500 of their soldiers have been killed in Ukraine, which is almost certainly a lie. Ukraine, on the other hand, says that 10,000 Russian soldiers have been killed, and that's very likely to be a lie as well. We cannot trust the word of the Ukrainians any more than we can that of the Russians. During wartime, people do try and deceive everybody else, and the aim is to make yourself look as innocent as possible and the other side as guilty as you can possibly manage. Which brings us to the threat of a radioactive cloud spreading across Europe and killing lots of people in other countries. Making a big song and dance about this is a shrewd move on the part of the Ukrainians because it makes their war our concern. Far more people have died from the effects of pollution from coal-fired power stations than from those powered by nuclear energy, but of course coal doesn't sound as scary as nuclear energy. Looking at Ukraine now, there was no chance at all of that nuclear power station being seriously damaged. Even if it was, it couldn't explode like an atom bomb. Nuclear reactors can't explode in atomic explosions. It's not possible to happen. The Ukrainians know this just as the British and the Americans know it. However, it suits us as well to play this up and pretend that a disaster has been narrowly averted. It gives the opportunity to show the Russians in an even poorer light than before, as being so careless of what they are doing that they nearly killed half of Europe. We expect propaganda like this in wartime, but there's always the danger that we might start to believe our own propaganda, and this could have a very bad result if it meant that we tried to join in the war in Ukraine. The next time that we start worrying about a nuclear disaster, it's worth remembering that just 31 people were killed at Chernobyl, and that even if a missile hits the concrete containment building at a nuclear power station and breaks it open, no radiation would be likely to escape. We are being menaced by an imaginary hobgoblin, and we need to ask ourselves why there is a movement afoot to scare us in this way.